Hello everybody, it's Hawk here, and this is the final deck I will be covering of things I played before or after MPQ was banned and before the new box happened. I might cover my last deck, but this is probably going to be my last one, at least for a bit. Then I'll go do the theory crafting. As you can see, it is Cyrstal Beast. I played it for 2 locals, and it has been very good both times. I can't take credit for this one. This is by someone on the Discord, whose name I can't recall. I think they've changed their username once or twice. But this is what they fundamentally use. They just didn't post a side deck, so the side deck is mine. I did make one modification to it, and I'll talk about when I get there, but this is effectively bare bones Cyrstal Beast. It's actually pretty damn good, I'm not gonna lie. So, it's very simple. It's triple Pegasus, triple Tiger. They are the 2 best ones. We're not getting complicated here. And then you have Sphere Karibo just because it's Sphere Karibo and it's useful without actually getting in the way. Triple Book because Book's good. Conclave because it's the entire reason you play Cyrstal Beasts. Crystal Regeki because it's a really good card and it's nice to pop things. Hey look, speaking of popping things, let's pop more things. Who doesn't like popping things? Except we're popping our guy, and then we're spinning that thing back into the deck, which is fantastic. As you can tell over here on the side, if you are keen-eyed, looking into the future is the skill. Probably should have covered that first, but with all the traps, it makes sense. And Book of Moon effectively is a trap, because times where you have to use it on your turn are rare, so the downside of future isn't that big of a deal. So, what you're doing here is simple. We are just using Tiger and we are using Pegasus to generate value for ourselves, either with Conclave and bouncing things or constantly replacing themselves, or Raigeki and popping shit, or spinning things with Rush Recklessly. Now, I won't lie, I have not tested Jar of Avarice. This is a maybe. I played with the 20 cards above you, and it is tight. Like, you are constantly just going, alright? However, you can also run out of gas pretty quick. There's a lot of games where it got real close to me being down to, like, my last guy. I can't tell you how many of those games. I played, I think, a grand total of 7 matches, I think it was. 7 matches with this deck, and at least 2 or 3 games, I was down to my last Tiger or my last Pegasus. So, honestly, the concept of shoving everything back in to draw back into them again is appealing, though I'm not certain how impactful this winds up being. I never actually ran out of conclaves or anything, but I could see putting them back. Just some thoughts. You do you. Feel free to test this. I think it's good, but this is a good on paper thing. I have not tested it, just to warn all of you. Side deck is, again, when I played at my locals, which my locals means I have to be far more paranoid of CA than most people are, which is what the Mind Crushers are for. But it is double Horn of the Phantom Beast, double Lost Wind, double Mind Crush. You can feel free to swap the Mind Crush for something else. You could put Offerings to the Doomed in here. You could put double Waking. This is a very heavy back row deck. That's why I assembled an extra deck here. Do what you want with that. Honestly, I probably would put the Wakings in here just because, I mean, people make someone paranoid of popping your back row, which is always nice. But honestly, Conclave winds up sitting up a lot, so it's not as often, but it's more for hitting these things. Just an idea. Now, the horns might feel weird, but sweet mother of God, I can't tell you how often those things came up. Every single game, not joking, every time I hit game 2 against what I was going against, I needed to put the horns in. Now, are you always going to have to put the horns in? No. If you're playing against like Iron Grit or something, Tiger will handle that for you. The thing is, I was going up against somebody playing Alo, which requires me to use Horn because I have to get bigger than them, or bigger than they are. I need, the other one was Vampires. I don't have to, but Horn solidifies that position, which is much more comfortable for me. Otherwise, you're just crashing Tiger into Lord, and it just feels kind of bad. It's not great. I'm not going to pretend. Yeah, I'm just saying, Horn's really good. Not necessarily so good I want it in main all the time, because there are, again, enough matchups where it's not necessary, but it's very nice when you have it. And Lost Wind's a good card. I cited that in a couple of times. Never felt bad when I had it. Hilariously, I actually used it on Dark Scorpions once. It was definitely a weird one. I also put the Mind Crushes in and hit Don Zalug out of their hand, so that happened. But basically, the deck's tight. It's fantastic. It's a shame we're not actually using one of the proper Crystal Beast skills, but hey, we're not actually doing Crystal Beast chicanery. We are using the Crystal Beast as an engine for a very nice control deck. So, positives about this. This shit is consistent as hell. Oh my god. You're gonna go. Like, the odds of you not drawing some piece of interaction and a guy to go along with said piece of interaction is effectively nil. Like statistically, you're going to get something. And even if you don't draw, like, one of these and, like, a guy, you're probably got a book or a sphere in hand, so you don't really care. You can just sit or take the hit. It's not a big deal. The side deck is pretty flexible. I mean, I've got Horn in here because it feels really good to not have to waste removal on a 1900. And these two can kind of be whatever you want. But the side deck is very flexible, which is quite nice. Like, you could put Santa Claus in here, and then you can bounce Santa Claus back to your hand with Conclave. Just saying. That is an option. You could spin it back to your deck with Rush Recklessly. There's many solutions to many problems if you want to get creative. And this skill just catapults what you need. So basically, that's the nice thing about Jar. It's why I feel very comfortable putting one Jar in here, even though I haven't tested it. Because Wolfpack did the same thing. I put a Jar in to get my submarine rights back. Because you basically pick when you're going to draw it. As long as it is not in your opening hand and your first draw, you get to dictate when that Jar happens. Which is fantastic. Also, I was shocked how often I was siding the books out for just traps. It's a weird feeling to do that, but it does happen. Just letting you know. But yeah, so weaknesses this deck suffers from. Jinzo, obviously. Jinzo is hell and makes you very sad, but you do have ways of dealing with it. Sphere Karibo and Book will both answer these problems for you. The Red Eyes Gearfried matchup isn't actually bad. I'm not going to say it's good either. It's kind of a neutral matchup. You can very much beat Gearfried by out-tempoing him. You just have to get online first. If you're online first, you're probably going to win. If they're online first, you're probably fucked. It's kind of... It's a hard one to gauge, because it really does depend on who's playing better than the other one and what your draws are. And guess what you get to do? I mean, they also could do this too. I mean, there have been some Gearfried decks that play this over either Switcheroo or Forged Steel. So, just a warning to you. This deck also has a problem with large bodies, thus the Horn. Basically, if anything's over 28, you have to use removal on it. Now, that's normally not an issue, because anything that's that big, you generally want to use removal on. I'm just saying, this deck has a weird weakness to the Whale deck, because the Whale is immune to being targeted. I think by traps specifically. Might be everything in general. The point is this deck does not have a great job of handling it unless you specifically have Horn. Just letting you know. I played one of those. It was a weird matchup. Once Horn was online, I was fine, but it's weird getting there. Just go with that. You have to get to that point, and it's a little odd, but hey, it gets the job done. Beyond that, this deck feels really good. It's got fairly good matchups against the top decks. It's not really a deck a lot of people are going to play. I don't think it's on many people's radars. Remember, this deck used to be really good. Conclave Control was a legit thing. I mean, there is a reason this wound up on the ban list. It was a stupid reason, but Crystal Beast was good enough to warrant being hit. They just hit the card we only ran 2 of anyway. Don't ask me. Conclave would have been the hit. Thank God they didn't. But hey, whatever. The point is this deck is good. I'd say CA is probably your worst matchup, and even then, it's not terrible. I mean, conclaving Azana back to their hand is fine. They're going to pop something, but do you truly care? I mean, if they pop a monster that you're bouncing, you don't care. Because it's destroyed, and you can put it in your back row, and now suddenly Raigeki is live. I'm just saying. It's a choice. Also, Rush Recklessly is funny, because that's not destruction either. That just goes back into the deck. That's fine, too. Once the combos happen, this is perfectly fine to do. This is the worst part of all of it. But hey, you have enough answers. And then there's more hate in the side if you want to do more hate. But yeah, this deck is good. I thoroughly enjoyed playing it. I think it's actually a sleeper deck. This deck can take games. I honestly think this should be a tiered deck. Just like most things in Speed Duel, there's plenty of good decks that just aren't on anyone's radar because there's just not enough people playing them. The easiest example I have of this is way back in the day, people didn't play Cyber Angels for quite a while. I mean, to be fair, TP Volcanic and Joey were pretty good, so I kind of get why CA went under the radar. But, like, yeah, no, that deck's fucking nuts. And here we've been sitting for over a year, constantly having to talk about it in the space, because it's never quite dead. It's never off the radar. And honestly, Cyrstal Beasts should have been the same way. This deck shouldn't be off the radar. It's not... It's just not in a position bad enough, in my opinion, to not be a tiered deck. I wouldn't say it's tier 1. I'd happily call it a tier 2 deck. This is definitely a deck that you should be paying attention to and should respect if you see it across the table from you. With that being said, what do you think? You guys ever give Cyrstal Beasts a shot? What's your particular variant of the list? Are you an Overdragon Turbo person? If you are, I respect you. That shit is hilarious. Anyway, remember to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment below. Peace out, everybody.